We've got an interesting question and topic of discussion today. We want to know, or we're going to talk about, if we could tell the fish how we're going to catch them, these would be our favorite ways.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
Folks, welcome back to the OneCast. It's been a little while since I've done the intro here. You guys have been carrying the load, but definitely welcome back. We appreciate everyone who watches and listens to us across all the platforms or on YouTube. And as you know, that's become a tradition now here in the intro. Make sure you go over to onecastfiction.com, use the code the OneCast, save a little bit of money when you get those snagless jigs, soft plastics, and then long neck hooks. This is, boys, I think we have come down to, this is the true dog days of bass fishing podcast right now, right? There's not a lot going on in the world, is there?
Yeah, if you're covering fishing news right now, bass fishing, crappie fishing, whatever it is, it's pretty slow right now. But I'll tell you what, like, I think I have up there episode 41, and I'm pretty sure that's accurate. I know we don't say episodes, but week 41.
That is correct.
That music still gets me, like that intro. I still love it. Like,
well, but there's a story behind that music. It's not just like some random.
Yeah,
music.
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
because it kind of coincides with our topic.
But that's a little teaser.
Yeah,
and not to make us, prolong this process, but there are some things going on in the fishing world right now, but they're not bass fishing. I mean, there is a couple tournaments left, but right now, if you're up in Wisconsin, you're up in Michigan, like the king salmon are running strong. They're making their way from the Great Lakes into the river systems. They're going up there in their 5-year life cycle to spawn, and then they're going to keel over and die. So if you're in the Michigan area, make your way up to Tippy Dam, which is off the Manistee River, or if you're in the Wisconsin area, make your way up to the Three Rivers and the Shoto Dam. They can't go any further, and it's literally shooting fish in a barrel. So that's what's going on right now. You should definitely make that trip up there.
And speaking of non-bass fishing, this is like walleye championship time right now, isn't it?
I believe it is.
It's just not in the news this year for some
reason.
reason.
it's close, if not started already. Yeah, it's so far not in the news. Hopefully for our walleye guys, the professional walleye anglers and guys that do that for a living, because there is professional walleye fishing, just like bass tournament fishing
and crappie fishing.
But hopefully for those guys, they can get through the end of their season without bringing fishing to the forefront.
Yeah, I just remember that was about a year ago, so I figured I'd try to make a little funny here before we get.
It has been about a year, yeah, since we got weights and fish.
We hate that for the outdoor industry. That is not growing a culture of anglers helping anglers one cast at a time. But it was a hot topic, and
it gave everybody something to talk about.
And it wasn't even a topic that like stayed in the fishing world. Like it just went to everybody. It was almost like, look who got divorced on the red carpet. Like it made headlines everywhere. So all my buddies, and I know you guys are the same way, they were all like, oh, you guys put lead weights in fish? Like, nah.
It was almost as big as Taylor Swift showing up at a football game.
I'm so I know we don't talk about that. Like, oh man, I'm so overseeing that. Like,
so folks, as you can hear, dog days of bass fishing podcast is right, because now we're rambling on.
There's two things I'm sick of seeing: forward-facing sonar debates and Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Hey, we might want to be careful. You don't want the Swifties on your bad side.
Yeah, that's all right.
But so let's transition into this topic that we were throwing around here a few minutes ago. We thought would make it a great episode. And the premise is basically, if you were going out in the water right now and you could tell the fish how you're going to catch them. So like you're going to tell the fish, this is what you're going to do today. So basically what I'm asking is, what's your favorite technique? If you can go fish them anyway, like what is the one rod you want to catch them on? Well, one setup. And I don't know who wants to go first, Pete, Trey.
Go Trey.
Oh man, you're going to put me on the spot. So, as much as I love as much as I love fishing in general, it is really, so first of all, that's a hard question to ask, and it's an easy question to ask, but it's a hard question to answer.
Because the fact of the matter is, I think we would all agree, whatever the fish are biting, right, that's our favorite lure for the day, right? But in this scenario, you get to tell the fish what they're going to bite that day.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of of summertime bass fishing large schools of fish. For some odd reason, it's not the forward facing sonar that gets me hyped up. Top water blowups are amazing, but when I see my side scan light up, like there's little boogers all over the screen, or you know what I mean?
Little tic tac,
little tic tacs, or whatever you want to call it. Side scan imaging for me is because reading electronics is it's a skill that's necessary in order to effectively target fish. Right. And just like we do in the military, we target using mapping products and all that stuff. So for me, it's the same language that I speak. So when the fish pull off the bed and they move into their summertime patterns, for me, if I was looking the bass in the face, I'm like, you will bite this giant deep diving crankbait. Because when I know that the bass are there, and I know a little bit of what you're going to say, but I just don't like fishing in the blind. Like to me, it's not fun. Well, that's not true. It's fun, like the anticipation and stuff, but still so I'm going to look at the bass and say, you're going to eat this deep diving crankbait of your choice, whatever, but I prefer a couple different brands. And then once I've seen them I can tell, this is probably really arrogant of me to say, but when the fish are set up a certain way, like I can tell they're going to bite.
That's not arrogant. That's just,
that's
experience.
Yeah.
Knowing, like if they're set up.
Yeah.
You're saying if they're on the bottom, they're going to eat a crank.
Yeah.
The first time I ever had that happen, set up, this was years ago. I was running 2D up front. And this is at Car Lake, Bugs Island. And it was one of those 2Ds that I was fishing docks and I was like 10 foot of water. I went over like 3 bass and it was almost like a triangle. You had 2 on the base and then 1 higher up. It's like the ideal, they were feeding position. So I literally picked up my crankbait rod or whatever, like a small diving crankbait, and threw behind the boat and caught 2 of them.
Yeah.
So that's super fun to do when you as Pete was saying, the experience and time on the water, it's not arrogant at all.
I know. I just, I'm trying to eat that humble pie that a lot of people need to eat.
No,
but
I don't think it's being humble. It's an education. Like you tell people what you look for.
Yeah. So I'm looking for boogers on the screen. That's the only way I can describe it. It really takes so much time to get dialed in with your electronics. And I don't have the latest and greatest, but what I have is I'm very comfortable with it. So when I see that happen, I basically know how to position my boat based on wind direction and current and, whatever. But even though I know it's going to be most likely a deep diving crankbait bite, there are so many options you have fishing summertime schools. Now you asked me the technique. So I'm going to say deep diving crankbait, but I'm going to caveat it with a lot of things are going to work during that time of the year. Right. So, and I throw that, on a 7.6 cash and deep crankbait rod with a really good gear ratio. And I throw my deep diving crankbaits on 12-pound fluorocarbon, but I change line sizes depending on what I'm looking for. And then I will add some things to the bait itself, like bigger treble hooks if I need to get it deeper, or maybe add lead weight if I need to get it deeper, or whatever the case may be. So I just think it's a cool thing because for some odd, spot locking in an area for me is nice because I own that spot. You know what I mean? So I'm an alpha, so I want to dominate that spot, and I know that I'm going to be able to target almost every one of those bass. So I don't know. That's my
I
favorite way.
Understand. I love a deep crankbait bite. We'll probably talk about it later, but I love that summertime offshore fishing.
Yeah,
my style is gonna fit right in there with that. But there's something about, and you can fish an area of really efficiency with that deep diving crankbait.
Yeah.
Pretty fast, especially now if with live scope, you can make 5 or 6 casts and determine whether or not you need to move on from that spot.
Yeah.
Relatively fast. And other techniques, it would take you quite a bit longer because you're just going to have to work the bait on the bottom longer. Whatever you're using, I guess. Other fast ones could be a jig and spoon or a hair jig or something, but a deep diving crankbait, that's always when I'm offshore fishing, I've got at least 2 or 3 probably tied on laying on the deck.
Yeah.
So Pete, what's your if you had to tell the fish you're going to eat this today, what are they eating?
This is tough.
I know
because
it's
there's two techniques that
you got to pick one.
I know
You gotta
they're a
pick
tie.
one.
They're a tie in my heart, and I'm gonna pick one. But we're gonna talk about the other one later because I want to talk about it. So if I can tell the fish on any day how I'm gonna catch them, I'm gonna catch them on a frog. I want a big, heavy 7'6" frogging rod with 65-pound braid. I want to see him eat that bait. I want to see my line swim in, and I want to jack them, and then I want to grind them out of the slop. I just don't. For me, there's nothing better. I understand not liking to fish in the blind because it's awesome when you like that offshore bite's great. You know they're there. You're pretty sure they're going to bite when they're set up. But there's something about like rolling down a bank of pads where you know there's fish and you're working that frog and you're just like all of your senses are so in tune. You see a little ripple in the pads back there or this back there. And all of a sudden, you know, that fish blows up and it's go time and you don't know when it's coming. For me, that's like the ultimate. I never did a lot of frog fishing until I got down here, and there's some areas that it's really good. I mean, I've thrown them, but like I fell in love with it down here because my answer would have certainly been different 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But I don't know if there's anything better. Just the whine of that line, you know, braid through the eyes and gets the blood pumping, man. I want to throw a frog right now.
It reminds me of that like short clip we made of Pete. Like I was recording him when we first started the podcast, and he's like going like clearing his throat, and he's
yeah.
I'm warm, boys. You know what I mean? And it's like it gets you jacked. It does, man. Like
I mean, frog bites are amazing. I mean, there is. I mean, topwater blow-ups are always special.
Yeah,
we always enjoy them. There is something about that big frog bite, especially a big fish on the frog bite, sucking it in and fighting it through, you know, that thick.
The buzz bait can be equal, but like for me, it's not the same as like when you're throwing a popper or a walking bait, because usually when you're throwing those, you know, there's either schooling fish or you're around that bait, and you have a pretty good idea that fish are you're gonna have a shot at them biting that, right? Like there's not as much anticipation for the bite.
Question for you though: what type of frog are you using? Like a buzz toad, a popping frog, or a walking frog?
No,
you got to pick one.
No, any.
You got to tell the fish which one you're gonna.
I'm not gonna say which one because not everybody. No. So either a hollow body, not a popping frog, just a regular hollow body like walking frog, or a buzz toad. Either of those two, because they kind of cover the same part of the areas of water that you're fishing. Those I'm gonna pick up one of those two first most of the time.
But I have a question for you now. So out of all the topwater techniques, what is the most challenging topwater technique?
The most challenging.
So when you're looking
to get them to bite.
So like what? No, like connection and landing them, like walking baits, pop our style baits, frogs, buzz toads.
For me, it's a buzz bait.
Buzz bait's the hardest, huh?
Like to from hook to land, I lose a lot of fish on a buzz bait, and it's not the buzz baits that I throw.
You run a trailer hook?
No, I horse fish too much on a buzz bait, and I end up straightening the wire, and then it gives them leverage, and it's 100% my like. I know what I do.
You heard it, horse fish.
Yeah, like I think I try to. They eat that buzz bait, and I just want to grind them to the boat and flip them up in, and I'm like, it's got that wire. The wire gets bent. Once that wire is bent, they get leverage. So for me, it's that because I've done enough frog fishing, and the frogs that I throw, I'm confident in. I don't lose. If I hook a fish, I'm probably going to land it.
Yeah.
If there are times you don't hook them, sometimes they don't eat it all the way.
That's the one thing I would say about a frog is that if they're not fully committed to it, the difficulty with it, because you don't have all those extra hooks, like a treble, like a pretty much any other topwater bait's got treble hooks, except the buzz bait.
I felt like the question was for me personally. It's losing fish would be a buzz bait. Most people are going to say a frog.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to get to Ben's here in a minute, but you know, when you look at like all techniques aren't created equal, like all baits aren't created equal. And there is definitely with a frog, a level of training and experience that you need to be effective with that. Like anticipating the bite or over anticipating and like instantly reacting is going to result in not having a fish in your boat, right? Like understanding like the cover they're eating in, whether or not that's in, you know, hydrilla or if that's in eelgrass or if that's in pads, frogs are going to be different, right? The
Yeah.
size of the frog is going to be different. And then like the count, right? 1,000, 2,000, set the hook, whatever the case may be. So frogs are people, like a lot of people's favorite techniques, but I am guilty of it. Like I get too jacked up and I just yank the frog, right?
I usually miss
you know.
the first one to eat.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's like,
I'll be honest, like, and
Yeah.
that's 100% me. And then it's kind of like, okay.
Yep.
But I used to do the, like, because everybody says, oh, count to 1,000, 2, 1,000, and set the hook. And I still missed a ton of fish. People don't realize how long you can actually wait with a frog.
Yeah.
Like, there's some really good videos on YouTube if you watch where guys have filmed like under pads and watch the frog, like watch the fish come up and grab it, bring it down, and it's all the way in. You could hook them, but then they'll spit it and readjust it and grab it again, trying to get it right. Like, so for me with a frog, when it eats it, I just wind down because there's usually slack when you're walking a frog. You're usually not tight. Wind down. If I can feel that fish pulling, I know that I can jack it. So I go by feel more in the count. But that was just me personally.
and that's experience.
It's like sploosh, and I'm like 1,000, 2, 1,000, and they still don't have it.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
I know, like, they eat it, I can wind down. It's also different, like with a toad. You ask about like winding a horny toad or something along that. Most of the time, you can immediately set the hook when they eat that. Most of the time with that moving bait, I think because it's moving constantly, you're not like with a walking frog where you're like twitch, twitch, stop, twitch, twitch, stop. That bait's moving. So in my experience, they eat that bait most of the time. And if you don't think about it and you set the hook right away, usually you still get a hook in them. Like I don't typically miss them if they eat a horny toad.
Yeah, I mean those baits.
And I think it's because it's moving.
Well, you gotta think of like the bass. Like you're telling the bass, like, hey, you're gonna eat this today. Well, a bass chasing a buzz toad, they're chasing the buzz toad. Whereas a walking frog, they get a lot of time to decide, okay, now, and then they come up, right?
Man,
So,
can it be violent when they eat that?
oh yeah, 100%. But let's definitely get to Ben's because I think I'm pretty sure I know what Ben's gonna say, but they all have their unique challenges associated with them.
Yeah, so it's probably no surprise. Mine's obviously the jig.
What?
Yeah,
Shocking.
I mean, I make them for a living, so it better be my favorite. But it's the reason why I started making jigs. There's just something about, and I love the offshore dragging a football jig around because you can drag it slow, and when you get that perfect bite, like they're going to do on this day, is what they're eating. You feel that tap on your line, you see that line jump, and you just wait a second and set the hook as hard as you want.
Yeah.
And it's really fun when you set the hook and that rod doesn't move and your line just starts stripping out. And I've got a couple of videos on YouTube where it's just like,
that's a big one.
There's like 7 or 6, 7, 8 pounders just stripping it. And so it's extremely fun to catch to catch a fish using the jig. I mean, the old adage is true, and I think we've talked about it. You get less bites on the jig. I used to never throw a jig years ago, right? 10 years ago. I just didn't have a lot of confidence in them. And until I finally started dragging a jig around offshore and getting those bites, I was like, oh, these are better fish. So there's just something about knowing that I'm going to catch a quality fish probably.
What do you think? And I've always, a lot of people say this, you're going to get a bigger bite with a jig.
100%.
Right?
It's
why do you think that compared to if I was to, flip a creature bait in there, Texas rig style versus, a 3/4 ounce snagless jig in there, why does that generally generate a bigger bite?
I think it's profile.
So the big thing is profile, right? It's a much bigger, bulkier bait. I mean, that skirt, when it's down there in the water, it really flares out. So it makes that bait look a whole lot bigger.
Yeah.
You're making especially the snagless jigs, they look like really big crawdads down there. So you are in a sense, just by virtue of the profile of a jig, you're searching for a bigger bite.
And it's not that you won't catch those small.
No, you'll catch,
but a lot of times when you're throwing a jig like Ben's talking about offshore, those smaller fish aren't there. Like,
and it's one
those
of those
areas you're targeting a different type of fish.
And there is something to be said offshore too. And you guys have probably seen, you pull up to a spot, you mark them, you flip down there, and you catch the biggest fish right away.
Yeah.
And then all the other ones are smaller. I have found out that if I'm on a spot and I'm pretty sure there's fish there, if I can cast a jig down there, that bigger one is more likely to bite right away. 2, I don't have to deal with the smaller ones as much.
Yeah.
Because like you throw a shaky head down there, yeah, you may catch 2 or 3, 2.5, 3 pounders, which are good fish. But in that spot, in Jordan, you catch 2 or 3 fish, you're gonna have to let that spot.
That's the whole school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're gonna have to let it sit.
Yeah.
And so that big fish may move off, right? So if you cast a jig down there right away, typically get that bigger fish. But the same thing also applies to a really big crankbait.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times that big fish will come over and eat that crankbait.
Most of your in my experience, the baits that you throw first offshore, a big Carolina rigged worm or a lizard, big crankbait, jig and spoon if they're suspended, big jig. Like I think that's why that big fish most of the time, and you'll hear all the pros, everybody say it. Most of the time, that first fish you catch is going to be the biggest fish in the school.
Yeah.
And I think it's because usually when we roll up, the first thing we're doing is picking up that big old bait that we're confident in on the offshore fishing. That's what we're starting with.
Yeah.
Whereas like Ben said, if you throw a shaky head out there, you're probably going to get those 2.5 pounders, but that 6 that's there with them may not eat because he's not going to compete with those smaller fish.
And look, these
I should say.
none of these are hard and fast rules.
No.
Because
Definitely
I
not.
mean, you've been out there with me. Like the first one I threw, there was a shaky head. And it was a 5 or 6 pound.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it just
is.
It just
is,
is. Right?
yeah.
But it's just if I'm looking for a bigger fish on the first spot, I'm throwing the jig first. And and obviously I love fishing offshore, but the jig is so versatile. Like I'll take it shallow and 2 inches of water, and you can run all the way out to 30 or 40 feet.
That's right.
And then depending on head style or trailer style, like you can drag it, skip it, swim it, hop it. I mean, you can fish it all.
It's got a
sorts
lot of
ways.
versatility.
I've already you see people ask that question all the time. Like if you could only take one rod and one bait and you had to catch fish, what would you take? And I'm 100% of the time going to take a jig because I can fish it fast. I can fish it slow. Just like you said, you can swim it, you can hop it, you can drag it, you can skip it, you can punch it. You can do anything that you want to do with a jig. And it covers all of that.
And that's why there's so many different jig head designs out there, because we've learned over the years. You take an old school, like one of the first jig they ever made, they're dragging on the bottom. If you just spin it really fast, people caught fish just swimming the jig.
Yeah.
Like, well,
Yeah.
Let's start designing them so they're designed to come through cover and stuff better.
And if you look at those first jigs, like you said, those heads almost look exactly like our swim jig heads of today. They were pointed most of the time. They look like a bullet weight, which is what a swim jig head essentially looks like. And like you said, people figured that out, and then they started messing, because try to drag that through rock and you're going to lose some jigs.
It's interesting. Like all the techniques that we just talked about, they're old school techniques. They're not the new. I'm not going to say new, but they're not. You didn't hear anybody say glide bait. You didn't hear anybody say, what's another new technique that came out, like Nico rig, right? You didn't hear, like, everybody has their own like flavor and stuff, but like the techniques we just talked about, they're old. They're not the new like hotness. We didn't talk about tungsten. We didn't talk about anything like that. Like with forward facing sonar, we're just like, it's just like plain fishing. And every single one of like all these techniques aren't specifically designed for like a forward facing sonar situation. Like they all can be, well, minus a frog. I don't know. Maybe you could use forward facing sonar for a frog, but probably not.
So I have on top water before. If you get out there, you can kind of see on the top of your screen, like when you're popping your bait or moving it, that there's little disturbance.
Yeah.
So you can see there's
but the stuff I fish, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah.
Well, or the frog.
But yeah, with like a walking bait,
like a walking bait, and you're doing like a brake line or something around the docks, I've definitely seen fish follow my top water.
But much like the frog, we talked about like some challenges with the frog. What in your opinion, I'll talk about with the crankbait, but what are the biggest challenges that you face or that you've had to overcome and adapt to with a jig? Specific, like, I know they're all different, but let's just say deep water fishing, like fishing a school.
Well, so I guess sometimes with the jig, especially if you're using old school jigs, the weed guard, you will lose a few fish on a jig. Part of that on the old school jigs, and it's part of the reason why with the snagless design we got rid of the weed guard, but you have to penetrate right through the weed guard into the fish's mouth.
Mhm.
So there's just a little more because of that. When the fish comes up and they jump, like they can get a little extra leverage there, right? You may not get as deep penetration, so you do lose fish on a jig. It happens. Pete's seen me lose them.
I mean, I've lost.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
them all the time.
you're gonna lose fish on everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes you will lose them on the jig. But to be honest, the biggest thing is gaining confidence with it.
Yep.
Is what I would tell most people is gaining confidence, because it can be super simple bait. You cast it out, and drag it along.
Yeah.
You can fish it as slow, and I've done 5, 7, 8 minute long casts before,
Mhm.
just dead sticking it, especially in the wintertime. Or you can really, stroke your rod and hop that jig 5, 6, 7 feet off the bottom, let it flutter back down.
Yeah.
So it's really, confidence and learning how to manipulate it.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not just chuck and wind.
Yeah. It's not. And a crankbait is chuck and wind, but there's definitely technique involved with that.
Oh,
While the
100%.
two baits that you guys talked about with frogs and jigs, you need a good solid hook set. With a
Yeah.
crankbait, it's the opposite.
Yeah,
Like
you're just pulling
you
it.
have to remember that, like, most of the time when you're especially in the summertime patterns, like the mouths on the fish are much softer, right? Their skin is far easier to penetrate. And I see a lot of people make that mistake with crankbaits where they, just want to jack them in the face. Well, a lot of times you end up ripping a hole in their lip or pulling the bait out of their mouth and stuff like that. So, opposite of frog fishing and jig fishing and a lot of other fishing or techniques, you have to let the rod and your body and your line
Mhm.
and your reel do all the work for you. Like, don't think for 1 minute that you're going to take, like, I don't know, whatever deep diving crankbait and rip their mouth off, because that's literally what will happen. I've seen it happen. Like, guys will come,
Oh yeah.
bait will come up and there's fish lips,
You gotta-
just hanging
The
out.
other thing with a crankbait, like if you're fishing a crankbait and that's like you have to change those hooks a lot.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
I don't do it if I'm fun fishing or fishing, like a club tournament or something. But bigger tournaments when I fish, every fish I'll change my hooks
Yeah.
because, like you said, a little bit of dull on those hooks with the softer mouths, you start tearing bigger holes. It's easier for them to get leverage. Most of the time, they're just slurping a crankbait. So how many times do you only have one treble hook in the back?
Mhm.
And that's what they've got. They're not really inhaling the crankbait. Like,
Let's stop. You're telling me every single time you catch a fish in a tournament,
if it's a
crankbait,
big enough tournament, I'll change every single time I catch fish. I'll put new hooks on.
I think that's cap.
I'm not that excessive, but I see what you're getting at.
I will. I'll change my hooks I'm talking $50,000.
Oh,
I'm talking big tournaments. I haven't fished them in a long time, but when I used to fish those bigger $25, $50, $75,000 chance to win tournament, every single fish I change my hooks on my crankbaits.
I would just have like 6 different rods.
Yeah, that's what
If I'm fishing raw, but you know how it is. It's
Yeah.
one. I might have 6 of the exact same bait, but they're only eating one.
That's true.
They won't touch the other 4.
That's true. But I know you, and in your boat are 17 of that same exact crankbait.
Yeah, there's probably a few. Yeah, so I might have been a little bit. You're right. We talked about it. I might have been a little bit overzealous. Maybe not every fish, but every 3 fish or so. Like in those bigger thing, I would change my hooks. But I also was never fishing bodies of water like a Gunnersville or some of those lakes where you get on those big schools and you have a window that's like maybe 4 minutes and you've got to crank as many of those fish as you can. Like
there's current windows. And
smallmouth fishing on the Great Lakes, when I get into a crankbait bite, I can sit there all day and catch them on a crankbait.
Yeah.
They're going to move off, but they're going to come back in 20 minutes. You know what I mean? So you can take your time to swap hooks every so many fish, but it's circumstantial.
It is. It's situational for sure. And we're going to talk about what we don't like. But before we do that, every single one of the baits that we talked about, minus the snagless jig, and if you've seen us at iCast or all the ads that are ran or you purchase them, almost every single product that we're talking about, like we all make modifications to them, minus the snagless jig when they've come out of the package. A lot of us do. And that plays a huge role in the effectiveness of the bait. Like Pete talked about changing hooks on crankbaits, adding lead weight to it to make it dive deeper, bending hooks out on certain frogs, trimming the legs on frogs. And even with like traditional jigs, like a lot of people pull them out of the package and start making modifications to a weed guard.
They'll cut the skirt off. Either spider cut it, finesse. They'll just rip off make it look beat up and
Yeah.
right, because we all know our best jig in the tackle box, the one that looks the
It's got like
worst. and
3
we-
strands left.
exactly. Right.
But we're going to talk about that on another episode too. Like we're talking about bait modifications, and I know our listeners really requested that, so we will dive into that.
You got to have that ugly jig. I don't know why ugly jig, ugly crankbait too. Like crankbait doesn't have any paint left on it.
So this is my.
But you know what you don't have to have that's ugly is your clothes. You got to look good when you're out there fishing, right? And the best way to do that is Carolina Waters. If you head to carolinawatersnc.com and use the code the OneCast at checkout, you'll save 20% in September. This is coming out after September, and I can't remember what. I think it's 15%. Don't quote me on that. I'll straighten out, but you will save some money off your order. Get you some UPF shirts if you've seen any of our social medias, media stuff. I'm wearing it all the time on the water. Trey's wearing it. Ben's got his now. He's been wearing for the last few months. They got a pile of different hats. They've got some really nice tech cold weather. We're in Carolina's cold weather hoodies coming. So they're going to be a little bit thicker of that like performance stuff you see like ATFCO and them using. So some really nice fall, early winter gear. It's just good stuff. Small company. It doesn't matter if you're in the Carolinas. It doesn't matter where you are. It's good gear. Make sure you check them out. CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use the code the OneCast. Get you some gear. Get you some T-shirts. Get you some hats. Support those that support us so we can keep running our mouths to you and going different places, because we got places we want to go and bring you stuff. You guys make a lot of requests, guys and gals, and we want to do everything you want us to do, but we gotta have some support from some sponsors and things, some partners. So Carolina Waters helps us do that, and showing your support to them also directly supports us. Trey's got an ugly crankbait in his hand.
Well, I'm just holding it. We're on Carolina Waters, and I love wearing their apparel, and it keeps me comfortable even when I'm using the worst technique. What is yours, Ben?
What is my least favorite?
Your least
I think we're all
favorite
going to be the same.
worst technique. Oh, please.
I feel like it's going to be a 3-way.
I absolutely hate fishing
Phrasing, Pete.
a wacky rig Senko.
Oh.
I absolutely hate it. It is so bad. I don't even buy the Yamamoto Senkos, right? That's because I don't use them. So I had a big bag of the Yum Dingers that were sitting in the bottom of my boat where all my plastics are for probably 3 or 4 years, unopened. And was it this year or the year before? I don't remember which one it was. I was out there post spawn. The fish had moved up. I guess it was this year, maybe, because the fish had moved up and moved off in a week. They had gone from not on beds to they were fry guarding in a week.
Yeah, it was quick.
And I tried to force those fish every other Ned rigs, glide bait, every other way to catch them. Right, those fry guarders. No, it wouldn't work. So I literally sat down on my boat and said, I guess I got to do it. And I opened it up and I dug out a Wacky Rig Senko and it caught like 20 fish.
But it's your least favorite.
It is my least favorite way to do it.
Is it because it's just so boring?
It's so boring, and I don't mind dead sticking. Like I'll dead stick a net or a jig. There's just something.
That's interesting.
It's not sexy. It's not
so.
fun.
So like totally, we're not all saying the same thing. So
Well, you're different because mine is 100% Wacky Rig Senko.
you can't have that one.
I mean, we're
fishing a Wacky Rig Senko.
We're gonna make some people angry. We understand that. I mean, it catches.
Oh, it
fish.
catches fish.
I mean, there's a reason why in some tournaments that's what every single pro is using, right?
I'm not saying I'm not going to throw it if I have to, but I do not want to,
and
I'm not going to like it.
And I have to really have to do it to be able to.
We all have to do things we don't like and
you
don't
like
do.
loathe entirely.
Like on that day,
Wacky Rig.
like on that day. In fact, it got so bad that if you could see the fish, like they wouldn't bite. You had to back off the bed and just kind of blind cast to the light spot up there. But it didn't matter if you threw other stuff doing that too. The only thing they'd pick up was a Wacky Rig Senko.
Okay.
They wouldn't even pick it up Texas rigged. I even tried going Texas rig.
It's
Senko.
literally the Wacky Rig Senko is the worst, most boring.
Gosh, you know what? I
thing
feel like
to
I'm the
fish
odd
in the
man out. Like
entire
I love
world.
the Sabine River, and these guys hate it, and but
I mean, it might not be your least favorite trade, but there's no way that you rank throwing a Wacky Rig up there very high.
so it's definitely not high on my list. But
Do you throw yours on a fairy wand?
Oh yeah,
Spinning it?
yeah,
Oh no, I threw mine on a bait cache.
yeah. I throw it on a spinning rod. I mean, that's from being in the north, and that's just what I'm comfortable doing. Like I probably should transition, but
because this
it works for me. I don't lose fish.
The stick baits are heavy enough to throw on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Most of your
They are,
bait
but
casters.
a lot of guys can't skip a wacky rig stick bait with a bait caster like they can a spinning rod either.
Well,
You even look
That's-
most.
I can't.
If
Like,
you
I'm
if you
straight
look-
up.
I mean, you talk
practice.
about like the tournaments where the pros and the elite, like 99% of them are throwing it on a
100%
spinning rod too. It's just, I think a spinning rod is better suited for that. Now BFS has changed that. I do throw it on a 610 BFS rod some, but it's just for me, it's more natural
Just
to throw it on a
comfortable,
spinning rod. Plus, like you throw it out there and then you like stick your hand in your pocket.
No, you
It's
stick
just
your
it's
hand in your
more
pocket.
it's more comfortable to hold a spinning rod while you wait for a stupid wacky rig to sink to the bottom
Okay.
than it is to hold a bait.
So okay, so why I just hooked myself, by the way. It hurt real
I
bad.
bet.
I'm actually bleeding right now. Why do you not like it?
For the same reason. It's just
No, you
boring,
have to-
man. It's like the most boring technique in the entire world.
It's
There's
almost
nothing. The bite's not exciting. Like it's literally just like, okay, it's been sitting there for 45 seconds. I'm gonna pick it up. Oh, it's a little mushy. Oh, there's a fish there. Sometimes it's like, oh, my line's swimming. I guess
So
one has it.
that is one thing, is that a lot of times on those bites your line would just swim away. Like
Yeah.
you don't even feel the bite.
Or it just goes slack if they hit it on the fall. It's not like they're like, oh, something to eat. Boom, and they thump it. And you're like, oh yeah.
Like,
It's just like
You don't get
okay.
that tap, that thump.
There's just nothing exciting about it. Even like Ben was saying, like with a Ned rig, which is not high up on my list, but at least it's usually a little bit of a tink, almost like a jig when they eat it.
and see, I love the Ned rig.
I know you do.
Yeah.
And I fish it in ways that a lot of people like. I'll fish them in offshore brush piles, a little
Yeah,
bit different.
yeah.
And I got such confidence doing that. I'm like I rarely fish going down the bank with it though, because that does get boring too.
Yeah.
Throwing a net up against the bank and just lifting it up and letting it fall back to the bottom and working the way back to the boat.
If I had to pick something different just from a wacky rig to be different than Ben, if you're saying I do that, it would 1,000% be a shaky head.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Seriously?
it's just boring. Like it
Oh.
works, and I don't mind throwing it, but it's
Yeah.
boring. Like there's nothing. It's another one that you don't get.
I like
You don't really get the thump like you do with a jig or something. They just kind of slurp it, and it's usually just like, oh, it's a little mushy, and there's a fish there. Like, I don't know.
no, you're totally
It's not
exact-
super exciting. Not.
Yeah.
I would
It's not-
throw it
it's not
100% of the time over a wacky rig.
It's
Um,
like I like fishing a drop shot a million times more than a racky rig.
Really?
And I think on a
I love
drop shot,
drop
like
shots.
a lot of times you will get the tap.
drop
tap.
shot's pretty fun because usually they eat it. Like
Yeah.
you get a couple tinks, and you're like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Plus, you're running on that spinning rod, and when you set the hook, they're immediately taking drag, even when
Yeah.
they're little. Like,
Yeah.
so you're like, oh yeah, that's a big one. You get up, it's like 13 inches.
There's something about connecting to braid to fluorocarbon. I just love it. You know, like
Yeah, it's definitely more intensive of a process to fish it, but it's. I mean, I growing up mostly smallmouth fishing. 90% of what I did was throw a dang drop shot,
yeah.
and so it's like I'm just comfortable doing it. It's one of those things like you pick it up and you do it, and
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's not again those like if I had to say 3. Shaky head, wacky rig, drop shot are like the last 3 that I want to do. But I'm gonna do them if I have to. But the absolute worst and the one I love the most is wacky.
But it's funny because you got to use it.
You do.
Got, you
I mean,
got
there's
it. You
tournaments
got to have it.
And I used to not keep one rigged on the deck of my boat, and I wouldn't throw it. So now I force myself to have one rigged on the deck of the boat because if I have to go into the rod locker, it's not getting used.
Yeah.
So now I'll keep it on there, and if it's 9:30, 10 o'clock and I don't have a fish yet, like I'm going to pick that up and I know I'm going to catch fish. Like
Yeah.
I know 100% I'm going to pick up a fish. I'll get some confidence. I may not stick with it, even though I probably should, but sometimes you just have to get that one and it'll kind of open up the floodgates. But yeah, I have to keep it on the deck tied on. Otherwise it won't get used because I'm not going to go looking for a.
You know, oh, go ahead, Ben.
I wouldn't even tie it up. I mean, I've used it once, that one
Yeah,
time in the
yeah.
last 4 or 5 years.
Really?
I will say there's probably not a better bait in the world to catch those fry garters. For some reason, they
I mean,
just
100%
like
that-
to
yeah.
eat that wacky rig.
And in that scenario, that's the only way you're going to catch them.
So the hand in the pocket thing, folks, like I was out filming Pete. Ben and Pete fished a veterans tournament that we hosted this year for the nonprofit heroesharvest.org. Go check them out. But I noticed that about Pete. Like he'll make a cast with a stick bait, wacky rig, and his hand goes right in his pocket because he's just like, all right.
It's the only way I can force myself to slow down, man.
I got pictures of it. We'll have to throw one up and stuff like that. But yeah,
Well, there's video if you go on, I think it's on my Instagram where you and I, when we went down the river, I caught like a 4.5 on one, and you could see me like I flip it to the lay down. I just
if that slows you down, like
that's the only way I can slow.
You guys have seen like offshore fishing. If I want to, like, I'll knee.
Oh yeah,
like,
you get on a knee.
I take a knee.
Oh yeah, you do.
That's how I know Ben's getting serious when he's offshore. I'm like, this is about fixing to get real boring. Ben gets down on a knee.
Like he doesn't step back for a hook set. He like gets on a knee. Sometimes goes into the prone, and then he's like, "All right, there he is."
I haven't gotten to the prone. But you set a hook coming up from a knee.
There ain't no getting off on it. You're either breaking your line or breaking its jaw.
Or pulling it out.
Yeah.
Unless he's throwing a shaky head, because Ben loses more fish on a shaky head than anybody else.
That is true.
I love the shaky head.
I have gone through a time where I lost a lot of fish on a shaky head.
Really?
A lot of that I think was rod.
Yeah. Anyway, Trey.
Anyways, but yeah,
What is yours? What's your different apparently?
Let me just tell you that I love the wacky rigged stick bait, and the reason is because it is very versatile. You can rig it weightless. You can rig it like when you say wacky rigged, a Nico rig is wacky rigged, right? You can drop shot a wacky rig.
Hate it.
Right? So it is versatile, but I love it because it's my number one spawn like bait. Like hands down. I'm not the greatest at sight fishing. I've learned a lot from you guys. But I'm not the strongest at sight fishing. I can catch them sight fishing. Kind of like Maddie talked about, like it's just something I didn't have to really do in Cali and stuff like that. Well, same thing in Michigan. Like it's so saturated with aquatic vegetation that like sight fishing really wasn't a giant thing, minus smallies, but we're talking largemouth primarily right here. And so it just wasn't something I did a lot. So like with the wacky rig, it's just been phenomenal for me. It's definitely not my number one bait. I don't have one tied on and in the boat right now, but if I'm fishing a derby with docks, I'm like, it's going to be in the boat for sure. However, my least favorite, and I don't have one tied up and I haven't thrown it, but maybe once or twice this year, is I cannot stand a bladed jig. I cannot stand it. Right. Like it is to me, the most overrated bait that exists right now. Everyone got the hype when the chatterbait came out. I've caught plenty of fish on them, but for me, with a moving bait, that's probably it is definitely the most boring moving bait that I throw. Some would say, man, a swim jig's really boring. Not really, because you can work a swim jig like top water over vegetation and you can drag it if you needed to or whatever. But for me, the bladed jig is just it is in fact my least favorite technique. There's not a lot of art with a bladed jig, from my opinion. Yeah, you can yo-yo it and stuff like that, but like it's cast retrieve, cast retrieve, cast retrieve. So for me, it's super boring. I don't like it. And I feel like I probably, because I don't throw it enough, I feel like I lose a lot of fish on a bladed jig too. Right? Because like you have to have a healthy balance between letting the rod do the work, but also setting the hook at the same time with a bladed jig.
100% understand where you're coming from. Obviously, we make the snagless bladed jigs and sell them. I've always got one tied up because of that. But I always go for a swim jig.
Yep.
If I think, unless it's like super windy or like low vis, a lot of times I still opt for the swim jig because I think less guys throw it. And it's a little more finesse before all the pressure that's going around. But you're right with the bladed jig. I mean, there are some things you can do. You can throw heavier weights and fish deeper with it and all, but most guys chuck it out there, wind it back. You may stop your retrieve, move your rod a little bit, but with that blade on there, like it's much more difficult to work all levels of the water column with a bladed jig chatterbait than even like you mentioned the swim jig and all.
Now, don't get me wrong. Like, we're fishing, a lot of North Carolina waters. Bladed jigs are very effective. Like they're very effective.
No matter where you go.
Where you go. But for some odd reason, I think just because I don't throw it that often, but even when I did throw it, I had a lot of luck initially with a bladed jig, like the OG style, like chatterbaits when they first came out, the originals and stuff like that. But I feel like fish, just like any other bait out there, they're so conditioned to that bait now.
100%.
And if I was going to pick between a bladed jig and a spinnerbait, it would be a spinnerbait all day long. I always have a spinnerbait tied up. I feel like I can do the exact same thing and more with a bladed jig, but I'm sure it's hurt me where the bladed jig was the bait of choice. So if I was in the water and I had a conversation with that 7-pounder, I would say, you will eat not the bladed jig, you will eat the crankbait. You know what I mean? So it's just a technique that it's so everybody throws it just like a wacky rig. But for some odd reason, I find more enjoyment out of that wacky rig than I do a bladed jig. I don't know. What do you like? Do you throw a bladed jig a lot?
Yeah, but I mean, there's 100% an art with a bladed jig. If you're just throwing it out and winding it, you're fishing it wrong.
Yeah.
Like I'll fish mine like a jerk bait sometimes. I'll fish it just like a swim jig. I'll give her that old Alabama shake. Start, stop, you retrieve, twitching. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. And you have to now to get big. Because like you said, everybody throws it. I don't throw it a lot, but there's times where I know that's what I need to throw. Especially like I have more confidence if they're feeding on gills and stuff than throwing a swim jig, just because I never threw a swim jig a lot. I know I can get bit on it and I do throw it, but like you're the opposite. You're more comfortable picking that swim jig up. I'm more comfortable picking up the bladed jig, especially in grass, because I love taking that bladed jig and letting it sink and then just ripping it out of that grass, like guys will do with a lipless crankbait and stuff, and you'll get a ton of bites.
The last time I was out on my lake, that's what I was doing with that 3/4 ounce because I didn't want to retie from being out on Harris. And it came through the grass. I mean, it came through with no grass on it.
But you can catch a pile of fish just chucking and winding it too. Like it's one of those baits that, as my dad says with chatterbait, a monkey can fish it because you just throw it out there, and if you can teach them to run the wheel, like anybody can do it. You can give it to a kid, let them throw it out there and wind it, and they're going to eat it because of the vibration it creates. But you're absolutely right. Like I'm back to throwing a spinnerbait more, because everybody's throwing a bladed jig, and it's not as effective as it was when it first came on the market. They could have banned it because it was stupid the number of fish you catch on it, and it was something they hadn't seen before. But like you said, everybody figured that out. Everybody started throwing one. Now they see it all the time. Not as many guys throw spinnerbaits. If you talk to a lot of young guys, guys in high school and stuff, if you watch those tournaments or recaps, they're throwing bladed jigs when most of us would throw a spinnerbait. You're starting to see, even on the higher levels, guys going and throwing more spinnerbaits than you see them throwing bladed jigs. Where before everybody was throwing the bladed jig. It's that cyclic thing we talk about.
It is.
It's ups and downs. So everybody, is throwing finesse stuff. Now you're starting to see big baits really come into play. Guys are throwing big baits. Eventually everybody's going to throw a big bait so much that it's the guy that goes back down to the smaller, either finesse or more traditional size stuff.
What's going to happen in a couple of years? Everyone's either going to be throwing big baits or finesse.
Yeah.
And then people are going to come with the medium-sized baits and wreck everybody again because no one's throwing them anymore.
That's absolutely that'll be the case, man. Like, and from this conversation right here, I think what we need to do is the 3 baits that we hate the least. Well, the wacky for you and you guys and bladed jigs for me, we need to throw them more. We just need to throw them more, right? So I'll challenge myself right now during the next season, because I'm not going to throw them I may throw some in the fall. I may throw some in the fall. I will own up to this. I will tie one on before I go fishing the next time, and I will throw it so I get better at it. I will say that the snagless bladed jig is a very great bait to slow roll. It's a great bait to slow roll. And that's with every one of these baits that we're talking about. Brands are cut from different cloths too. So they all play a different role. Some, like when that Berkeley slobber knocker came out. I got 2 of them. I haven't caught a single fish on either of those. I'm not saying they don't catch fish. I just don't throw it enough to catch them. So maybe I need to take the snagless bladed jig, the OG original chatterbait, and that's what I'll do. I'm going to tie those 3 on. I'm going to tie those 3 bladed jigs on, and I'm going to have to post pictures on our Instagram page of me catching some fish on some bladed jigs, because I'm probably going to eat crow by not throwing that enough.
I always have a wacky rig tied on too. I just don't pick it up unless I absolutely have to.
But Ben doesn't have
Ben
one.
doesn't have one.
So Ben's got to challenge
Ben's gotta-
himself to
Ben's
put a
gotta pick
wacky.
it up.
Come on.
Nope.
It's not the best time of the year to throw it. I will say that.
And we definitely want to know, like, your feedback is extremely important to us. Like, let us know, like, your favorite techniques and your absolute, like, I don't even want it in my boat technique, because, that it makes for good conversation, and it's not about forward facing sonars. That also makes for a great conversation too. So
Let me correct myself. I've used the Wacky Rig twice in the last 5 years.
5 years, 2 times.
Probably. I told you to get the one. The other one, I was having trouble offshore. I was like, you know what? Let's Wacky Rig this brush pile. So
I caught one out of it too.
no, I rigged up and I watched on live scope. It sank down. It took about 20 seconds. I was like 15 feet down, 15 foot, right? But the brush pile comes to the 7 or 8 foot. So it took a long time. I broke off right away. And I said, I'm not throwing this again.
It took us 5 years to tie another one on.
You speak of that brush pile, which about the Wacky Rig. That is something that I don't think a lot of people really understand. And somebody, I won't name him, but he told me, he was like, you are doing yourself a huge disservice if you can't get fish to bite in the brush pile. Like, a deadly technique is to either weight or weightless a Wacky Rig over the top of a brush pile, because you can keep it in the strike zone the entire time. And unlike, what's that rig called that we use with the little minnow? What's it called? Demiki rig. Yeah, Demiki rig. Geez, sorry. Unlike the Demiki rig, like, everybody knows, like, the stupid stick bait gets bit.
Yeah.
And so, like, a lot of times those fish will come out of a brush pile where of course, you're forward facing sonaring it, but you're looking at it, and they will come out and they will crush that thing. It's not applicable every time.
It.
No.
They
eat it.
And that's why I picked it up that day. Because I know it's an effective technique for guys. But that's why I use a net a lot.
Yeah.
An 1/8 ounce net with a little TRD and 20 foot of water.
Gosh, I got to do that too.
I caught some big fish.
Those are the two techniques Trey is challenging himself in the 2024 season to throw a bladed jig and throw a Ned rig. Those are the two things I do not. The only time I really use the Ned rig is when I'm almost using the OneCast fishing snagless version of it, right? The weedless, right? And you can run that like a Demiki rig if you have the right bait, and you catch a lot of crappie on that too.
Well, like in the spring, especially around the spawn, I'll take those weedless neds and I'll put in that little 3.5 inch stinger swim bait. So like I can just run along the bank like I am like a very small swim bait, and then if there's a bed, just in that time of year, typically I'm using a pearl one, a white one, and just drop it right on the bed.
Yeah.
And so it becomes dual use at that point. As I'm searching for beds, I could just catch a couple extra fish here and there that are cruising around.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't wait to go jack them off a bed in a couple months.
Couple months. Are you going to Florida?
Ain't that long, man.
It's not even October yet.
Close enough.
I guess
close enough. Pete is in full.
It's like 5 months. Like, close enough.
This will come out in October, but still,
yeah, it's close enough. We're getting there. 6 months,
almost half the year.
That's fine. That's a couple months.
Pete, that's what I want you to be for Halloween this year. I want you to be a bed fisherman.
How do you do that?
But I don't know. Put that costume on, walk around with a giant flipping stick in your hand, or a Wacky Rig, whatever, and we'll go from there.
You'd never see me throw a Wacky Rig.
That sounds like a viral video of bed fishing. We need to take like an air mattress out.
Yeah, that's oh man. Well, hey guys, you got anything else for the fans?
No, it's been 41 weeks of us putting stuff out. Appreciate everybody listening and getting involved. We do have a pretty big giveaway coming with a bunch of cool stuff. I know I keep saying every episode we're going to announce that. We just haven't had time to sit down and hash it out yet. So we're going to do that.
It's coming.
It's coming soon. We got all kinds of good stuff to thank y'all. And
I mean, the longer it takes for us to do it, the
more stuff we keep getting. So yeah, it's just getting better for y'all the longer we wait. Maybe we'll try to do it for the holiday and give a nice Christmas gift. But you should see the hats come out by the time this episode. So if you haven't got any of the OneCast swag hats, t-shirts, hopefully there's still some left. If not, then I'm sorry I mentioned it, but we'll eventually get some more. We are doing a limited release of some OneCast merchandise, the OneCast merchandise. You get a free sticker when you order. So check that out on OneCast Fishing. We have a page on there. We're using their store just because it's easier than us setting up our own, if I'm being honest. So we're going to go through there. We'll get that shipped out to you. Trey will sign your hat if you want him to.
I got a Sharpie right over here. Let's send it, boys.
If you're watching this and if you're down around Lake Lanier, we're going to be down there in 2 weeks. So
What if we started signing the inside of all the hats?
Yeah. Like with real signatures?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to be like
We can sign all
Taylor
of
Yeah.
Swift.
yeah, Swifty for
Yeah.
life.
I mean, we could do that. You never know. We could be famous or infamous. So,
More than likely infamous.
them.
yeah.
Here, we can write little secret messages.
Oh, that would be
Yeah, you may
cool.
get a secret message in your hat, so you might want to look under the band. Under
Oh,
the
that's a pretty
sweatband,
good idea.
There might be a secret message where Trey will tell you how much he loves you. But no, seriously, we appreciate everybody's support. It's been cool. It's been a ton of fun. We started it. We've talked about it a few times, but we always sat around and talked about fishing, decided to record and put it out there for y'all, and it's opened a ton of doors for us. But where I was going again is this is coming out in a couple of weeks. We're going to be at Lake Lanier. That'll be 2 weeks from when this episode drops. I'm looking at my the calendar up on the wall. About 2 weeks from when this episode comes out. So if you're down in that area, the NPFL is coming down there for their final vet. We won't be there for Blast. Well, Ben and I will not be there for Blast on the first day. I don't know what Ben's travel plans are. Trey is talking about maybe going down for the whole week. I'll be there for weigh-in Thursday, and then we'll be there Friday, Saturday, all day. We'll see them lift that AOI trophy. Somebody, hopefully our friend Todd Goad. But we have a lot of friends that are up there close. So, we wish them all luck, but I'm hoping Todd pulls it out because he's a good dude.
Yep.
Enjoyed talking to him. If you haven't listened to that episode, check it out. But if you're in that area, come check us out. If we have hats and shirts and stuff left, we'll bring those with us. Might even set a few aside so we have some to bring down. We'll see how it goes with those. But if you can come see us, come check out the NPFL. They put on an awesome event, drive-through weigh-in. You get an opportunity to talk to the guys and gals that fish it. They're super open with letting folks in and around the trailer and stuff before weigh-in. They do rope it off during for safety, but if you get there early, Paul and Brad and those guys are more than happy to talk to you. Go check out the blast off. Go check out the weigh-in. Come hang out with us. We're gonna do a live like we do every week, but it's gonna come out as an episode that Friday when we're down there. I think we're gonna do it with Paul and Brad. We had talked about it before. I need to confirm with them. But we'll let everybody know if we're going to do that in a public space or not. So maybe you can come watch us make a fool of ourselves and talk.
I'm still going to sign your hat.
Yeah, Trey's going to put a love message in your hat for you. And make sure you check out those veteran organizations we talk about. We're going to have Mike, I know you listen, so we're going to have you come on pretty soon to talk about FX3 and what you're doing for our veterans. That are struggling with suicide and getting them out fishing and doing all that stuff. So make sure you check out fx3inc.org. Check out Heroes Harvest. Is it .org also?
Yep.
Heroesharvest.org. Make sure you head to Facebook. Check out Special Operations Bass Anglers. They have a tournament coming up November 7th, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the 7th?
I think so. I don't know. Sounds good.
It's
to me.
on Veterans Day.
Nice.
So whatever that Friday Veterans Day is, they have a tournament. We're also going to be there for that. We were invited by the organizers. I'm going to be fishing it. Trey's going to be fishing it. My old man's coming down to fish it. And then I have a club tournament for 2 days on the same lake. So I'm going to be sick of fishing Lake Norman and docks, but make sure you check out Special Operations Bass Anglers. Who's the other organization? For His Glory Outdoors. They do a lot for veterans as well. Getting them out on the water to heal. Check out Carolina Waters. Check out OneCast Fishing. Who else do I want to shout out? You guys want to shout anybody else out?
No,
What I want to say lastly before we close this out is, Mike, my man, he just lost a good buddy that served with him or served in capacity alongside of him in Iraq, and he took his own life. You're not alone out there, like Mike talks about on his social media page. Like, you can always call 988. You can always call any of us in this room, including Mike, and all of his stuff is linked below. So no one's alone out there. Make sure you check out all those organizations that Pete talked about, and hang out with us at the NPFL, because we're all trying to create a culture of anglers helping anglers one cast at a time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh god, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.